Allies or enemies by... Oh, it's changed. Juniper by Juniper. Chapter 27. No, no, this couldn't possibly be Scar. His Scar was more endearing, like when Hawkeye comforted him after he thought he found Doc's corpse. His Scar was goofy and able to make him laugh like no other. Like Hawkeye would tell jokes when Green was in a bad mood. His Scar wasn't able to run around and jump. Hawkeye could with the aid of robotic legs and technology advanced enough to help. Hawkeye had to drag him to the Undercity so he didn't lose the one thing in his life that kept him alive: his health. Scar had to stay alive. His Scar gave him nicknames and gave him undevoted love. Light of his life, Birdie. Scar betrayed him. Grin almost killed him when they fought. Scar was the reason his wing had been shot during a battle. He hated Hawkeye, but loved Scar. Scar was the one and only person he'd ever met who was patient enough for his mood swings. Scar gave him devoted and unconditional love, even when Green was mad at him. Scar showed Green true love actually existed and put it into actions so Green not only knew but felt love. He'd stolen both of their clothing and slept in the same bed at night. He let Scar preen his wings and let Hawkeye bring him coffee in the mornings. He'd been inside Hawkeye's apartment. He worked alongside Scar for years. The two sides of the same person became blurred in Green's mind. The love of his life, who would stop at nothing to keep them together, was the same man who betrayed him and broke all of his trust. He trusted both, and neither part of Scar. The slow-paced, gentle-handled teacher was a loud, arrogant hero. Green brushed his fingers over Scar's bleeding eyebrow. It must have been cut when his mask got cracked. Green's fingers tightened where he was holding Scar's shirt. The situation unfolding in his mind had to be paused when Green remembered they'd been falling. He bit his lip and moved to hold the hero closer to his chest, hugging him tightly. He opened his wings in the split second he needed to lower them to the ground. He nearly dropped Scar when he landed, landing on top of him. He hovered over Scar up on all fours, one arm still holding Scar's head to his chest. He laid the other's head down on the road, anxious hand hovering over his half-conscious body. Grin didn't know what to do with himself. He knew he didn't know what to do in a lot of situations, but this time he truly didn't have any thoughts. Out of all things he tried to process within the last month, this was not something he was ready for. He slowly set a hand on the other's head where the missing half of his mask was, fingers slowly tracing the outline of his forehead and hairline. He felt as though his brain was shut off. It all made sense. Everything lined up. He didn't know how he didn't notice sooner. Hawkeye? He whispered, getting a wince out of the hero. Scar opened his eyes, and Green swallowed thickly. He saw the hero shift, his nerves nearly jumping out of his own skin. He shifted to climb off of the hero, moving to sit on his knees beside Scar. He nervously leaned over him, staring down at Scar's bleeding cut. Seeing Scar move around and get hurt did things to his heart he didn't like. "Are you all right?" he whispered gently, his entire demeanor changing once he realized who was behind the mask. The man who showed him undevoted and unconditional love, even though Scar didn't owe him a drop of it. He still gave it. The man who showed Green he was worth something. His love slowly opened his eyes, squinting at the sun over his head. Green graciously raised a wing to block out the sun, staring down at Scar. He was scared the other had some kind of internal injury behind his head. There was no outer blood or wound aside from the cut, but Green feared any kind of pain for his lover. Angel? Scar half mumbled. Green's heart jumped, hearing such a lovely nickname. His face burned red as he swallowed. Me? He asked softly, still under the impression Scar didn't know who he was under the mask. He was still Exoqua. Did Scar know? Are you an angel? Scar asked more clearly this time, his one eye slowly dilating and contracting while trying to focus. Green's wing drooped at the question. He smiled, shaking his head. Either you're brain damaged or aware I saved your life, Green commented, raising his wing higher when Scar hesitantly moved to sit up, holding his head. Green tried to keep up the teasing superhero facade. You saved me? He asked, hand hovering over his broken mask. He felt his cheek and revealed skin, immediately turning away from Green. Green flushed and glanced away, pretending he didn't see the other's face. His head wings covered his eyes as he removed his glass Exuma gave him. He still had his mask under them. He only wore them for double the privacy anyway. Yeah, I thought Doc shot you, Green explained, offering the glasses without looking. He knew his hands were trembling. He felt the hero take them and moved to set his arm down. I think he missed by breaking your mask, luckily. Did you? Scar trailed off, putting Green's glasses on. See your face? Green asked nervously, refusing to look up from where his gaze was transfixed on the road. No, he lied, knowing it was for the better. They could have this conversation later, even if Green's heart was racing and mine was spinning. Oh, good, Scar mumbled, setting a hand on Green's hand to indicate he could uncover his eyes. Green's heart jumped, letting the other hold his hand. Green moved his head wings back and cautiously looked at the hero. He looked odd, in a bad way. They were a little out of place with his outfit, since none of it had pink, but they would have to work for now. As Green started to assess their options, he noticed Scar's hand reaching out weakly towards the shattered mask. Green's heart stuttered, realizing just how much the mask meant to Scar. It was more than just a disguise. It was a symbol of the hero he had become. With a determined sigh, Green gathered the broken pieces of the mask and carefully placed them by Scar's side. He knew that in this vulnerable state, Scar needed to focus on the fight, not on the pieces of his shattered identity. Are you alright? Green asked, moving to stand up slowly, offering a hand to Scar. Seeing the hero move and speak, it was distracting now that he knew it was Scar. His thoughts hadn't stopped spinning in and out of his mind. Scar betrayed him. Hawkeye loved him. It was hard to keep up with, sympathizing with his lover while also trying to care for a broken hero who just wanted to help people. Scar smiled a little, taking his hand to accept the help. I think so, he mumbled. Where's Doc? He asked, glancing up at the skyscraper. Is he still up there? Green stared at Scar's face for a moment, remembering the night they kissed for the first time. He looked up. Maybe, Green frowned. I kind of neglected to keep track when you fell, he mumbled, mind still unable to process that his love was with Hawkeye. Scar turned to look at him, confused. I fell? He asked softly. Green stared at his eyes behind the glasses. It was so hard to unsee after seeing Scar's face. The scar on his nose was far too recognizable. When Doc shot you, you fell backwards. You were only unconscious for a minute, I think. Green was less focused on the time and more focused on the fact Scar was Hawkeye. You think? Green became nervous at the question, avoiding eye contact. Uh, Birdie? Green's face flushed, his head wings doing slow, anxious curling motions. Are you alright? He asked softly, a small smile appearing on his face. Worried I would get hurt? Green refused to look at Scar. He hated looking at his face now. Yes, he admitted, only because he knew who was behind the mask. He vaguely saw Scar frown, quickly working to cover his answer up. Only because it would have been a bullet wound to the head. He probably would have died in like a minute or something. Green muttered, glancing at Scar's chest. A chest he'd fallen asleep on and pressed his face to when upset. Even this morning he'd done that. Oh, Scar whispered, glancing away under Green's odd gaze. I suppose that is right, Scar admitted before clearing his throat. Green was wildly uncomfortable. He didn't know how to act around the hero now. How was he supposed to share everything with Scar? If he told Scar who he was after all of this, Scar would know about Pearl and Jimmy. He'd known he grew up in the Undercity. Scar would know everything about his two separate lives. He'd known about all the kinds of experiments and torture he'd gone through. Does that sound like a plan? The voice pulled him from his thoughts. Green looked up at Scar, eyes wide and guilty. What plan? He asked softly. Okay. Scar only frowned at his response. Green felt his face growing hot with borderline shame. Are you sure you're okay? Scar whispered to him, reaching out to take his arm into his hand. Green only jerked away at the touch, staring at Scar. He moved a step away and turned his gaze. I'm fine. Just repeat your plan. Green tried to shove the thoughts away, too distracted with the reoccurring secret he was keeping. Exactly. You are not fine. He sounded more stern than before. It freaked Green out. He never heard Scar get like this before. Something happened, Scar noted. Yeah, I thought you died, okay? Green snapped. Can you just move on and tell me this plan? We don't have all day for my mutant father to destroy the city. Green huffed, knowing he was getting worked up. It luckily was a reasonable excuse that would get him out of explaining why he was really freaking out. Scar was quiet for a moment before glancing back up at the building. All right, he began. He began softly, giving in to Green's wishes. How about we stage a sort of scene? Scar began, getting quiet as he rethought his plan. I think since he's been looking for you, it'll work if you're alone. He seems to see me as a threat or distraction, Scar mentioned while rubbing his bleeding eyebrow, wiping the blood on his pants. I'm going to give you my gun, and when he gets close enough, you aim for an arm or leg. Based off of, your reaction, Green cringed, remembering the unfortunate night he was shot. He'll take a moment to register the pain, and that's when I can get him. I'll call some backup for us when you're ready, just in case I'm not fast enough, Scar explained, messing with his device on his arm to call for backup. Green watched Scar quietly, thinking the plan over in his head. What makes you think he's going to care about me getting hurt? Green asked, glancing away from Scar momentarily. I mean, I don't know if he's going to come up to me. What if he hurts me? Green asked. The Scar thoughts being pushed aside for now. Scar frowned at Green's fear, lowering his arm. We're just going to have to take a risk, Scar explained with a smile. Come on, let's try and get Doc to come out again, he decided, glancing around. I think we'll need one of his creepy devices, and you might have to do some acting, Scar mumbled to himself as he began walking. Green looked at his legs, seeing him move so fluidly. He never noticed before, but now that it was Scar, it was foreign. He'd grown so used to seeing his lover struggle. It was nice, in a bittersweet sort of way, to see him able to get around freely. Green perked up when he realized he was falling behind, rushing to catch up to the other. He walked a little behind Scar, staying quiet. There wasn't a lot he could say. Anything he was thinking of either revolved around his mutant background or Scar being Hawkeye. He had little to no focus on the current mission, stressing him out that he may end up failing the both of them. He wanted to tear his own hair out, thinking of his predicament. "What's gotten you so quiet?" Scar asked softly, looking over his shoulder at Grian. Grian raised his eyes to meet the other's hidden ones. It made his chest ache, knowing they were green anyway. He looked back down. "Just seeing Doc again," he lied softly. "I don't want to talk about it. Now isn't the time," he explained briefly, wanting to change the subject quickly. Scar seemed to somewhat understand, turning back to focus on trying to find one of Doc's devices. Green crossed his arms before glancing around. It was oddly quiet, sending him into more of a panic. "How about I fly up and try to find one? You watch where I go," Green asked, looking at the back of Scar's head. Scar turned and glanced at him before smiling. "If you're up for it, go for it." Scar gave him a thumbs up, pausing his walking. Green hesitantly stopped before nodding. He lifted himself up and flew just a little over the building before going a few more feet up, high enough until he could potentially see one of Doc's devices. He looked around, focusing on Scar for the majority. He hated seeing him alone down there. He hurried to spot on, looking around with practiced ease, seeing one another block over finally. It crackled oddly, making Grian nervous. He looked down to Scar and waved to him, flying to a nearby rooftop to wait for Scar. He hid and watched the creeper until Scar joined him, crawling along the edge of the building. Grian stuck his hand out expectantly. "Give me your gun, so if I see him," he whispered, watching the hero take it and offer it slowly. Scar grabbed his wrist before he could pull away, holding him gently. Grian met the other's eyes in confusion, heart racing. "Be careful," Scar whispered back, sending Grian's headwings into anxious fluttering again. He nodded, slowly taking his gun and putting it in a thigh holster where his old gun was missing. He looked down at the creeper robot, the electric charge still fluttering around it maliciously. He glanced back at Scar and swallowed before jumping off the roof, landing with a loud enough grunt to alert the robot. He watched it turn and face him, shivering when it saw him. He moved to take a step back, glancing to see Scar watching him in secret. He looked back at the creeper, still approaching him, and moved to fly up, surprised when it rolled closer and blew up the ground in front of him. The force of it surprised him, knocking him back with a surprising amount of force. He laid on his side, coughing from the smoke and debris. He glanced up to see Scar was gone, confused and worried for the other. He glanced at the crater, taking up the entire street from one side to the other. Doc wasn't lying when he mentioned these were more powerful. He grunted, shifting to sit up on his legs, his wings ruffling the dust and dirt out of them. He crawled up to stand, his pants ripped with a small amount of road rash forming already. "Hawkeye?" he asked, looking at the roof. He moved to fly again, raising high enough to see Scar was actually gone and not hiding. He looked around in all directions, only seeing another creeper down the road. "Hawkeye?" he asked louder, not being met with a reply, but a green ball device being thrown from the ground. Green glanced at it as it approached, not expecting it to blow up near him. He thought he had a much larger react time. He was momentarily knocked back, flying out of the explosion, only to be met with one right behind him. It scared him, and the force sent him flying to the ground, taking quite a tumble. He coughed, rolling to his hands and knees, wings shaking off the smoke. He looked around, still not seeing either of them. "Doc?" he asked quietly, fearing Doc, he yelled, moving to stand up and look around. Where are you? What did you do with Hawkeye? He asked, spinning slowly until he saw another green device roll from an alleyway. He grit his teeth, ready to kick it back into the other alleyway, watching the scientist run up the side of the building and to a roof to escape the explosion. Grian began flying, meeting him in the air once the grenade went off. Enough, he muttered. Where is he? Doc frowned at Grian, sighing softly. He's fine. He just wasn't paying the most attention, so he may be knocked unconscious and in the line of sight of some of my robots. He smiled. Grian's shoulders raised, feeling the anxiety appear again. He can't be that far, he whispered to himself, before groaning. I've had enough of you. You can't keep destroying innocent people's homes in the city. Grian looked around to see if he could see Scar anywhere. The panic really settled in when he heard an explosion blocks away. How else will they learn? Doc yelled, holding another green device in his hand. Teach them, Green suggested. Show them you aren't evil. I did, and look at me. Green waved his arms out while flying. I work alongside a hero who supports hybrids and mutants. It doesn't have to be like this. Grint tried to get through to the mutant. His mind was severely sidetracked once he heard a yell from down the street. Exalqua! Green whipped his head around to see Hawkeye, perfectly fine. Green breathed a sigh of relief, seeing his lover was safe. He looked back to Doc, only to be met with a grenade being tossed to him. Green hated that he didn't know the timing. He was blown out of the sky once again with a scream. He hit the ground harder than he would have liked, feeling a bruise in his arm already forming. He sat up slowly, feeling an arm support him. He looked up to see Scar helping him, along with multiple police cars coming around the corner. Grint turned back to see Doc attempting to run away. I've got to stop him. This can't keep going. Green rushed to stand up, running out of Scar's grasp. He opened his wings to begin the chase, reaching for the mutant's shoulder to grab and support him. Exalqua! Green ignored Scar's protests in favor of pulling the mutant down to the ground, flying over him. He landed a little clumsily, turning to see Doc already trying to get up. Green saw the device and immediately kicked it from the mutant's hand. He lunged for the mutant after that, ignoring the explosion to the side of them. Green was aware the building was near collapsing, making a mental note to apologize to the city after he'd won this fight. He crawled on top of his father, grabbing his wrist to rip another explosive out of his hand. Green flung it away from them, ignoring the sound of more debris falling beside them. I can't let you continue to hurt people, Green screamed, taking advantage of having the high ground to punch the goat mutant in the face. He ignored the way Doc seemed wounded after that, trying his best to hold the other down. He reached for Scar's gun on his thigh, shaky hands pulling it clumsily. With Doc wiggling underneath him, it was hard to get a tight grip. It slipped from his hand, giving Doc the chance to roll them over, holding Green down with the wings on his back. Green glared, raising his legs up enough to kick the other in the stomach, flipping him over his head and onto Doc's back. Green shifted to sit up, rolling to his knees to grab the gun once more. He hadn't noticed that flipping the mutant over would make him drop all the other explosives in his lab coat. He ignored them, thinking they weren't active. Doc made a run for it, past Green and towards Scar's direction. Green turned in anger, aiming the gun. Not this time, he yelled to the mutant, aiming his gun in steady succession. It was hard with the way Doc was trying to avoid the police. He got a second of grace period where Doc had to pause and think. A loud explosion went off behind Green. It startled him, making him take the shot against his will. He watched Doc for a moment, unsure he succeeded, before seeing Scar give him the most horrified look he'd ever seen. Exalqua! Green blinked. One moment, seeing Scar scream for his attention, and the next, glass and metal falling in his line of sight. He didn't see anything else, only being surrounded by darkness in his last few seconds. He heard rumbling and crashing all around him. It felt like an earthquake. Everything felt heavy. He felt like he was on fire. He was so hot, smoke and debris consuming his lungs. He could barely open his eyes, the only thing in his line of sight being dark pieces of metal and broken glass. He shifted to try and move, his throat letting out the most pained screech he'd ever heard, even from himself, when he felt something tearing into his wing. He realized he was lying on his stomach, face planted to the ground while all sorts of carnage surrounded him. He realized the entire building collapsed on him. Scar was trying to warn him. Grant tried to move his right wing, finding it barely movable. It was pinned, but not nearly as in much pain. He shifted to look at his left wing, only then realizing something sharp was going through the end of it, near the tip, but rooted deep enough to dig a hole into the road. He let out a distressed chirp, the only sort of thing that could comfort him. He couldn't move his head too much, only able to look up, and there wasn't anything there but dark debris and metal. He whined, tears forming in his eyes. This is how he died, surrounded by debris from his own stupid doing. He rolled his head back to the side, trying not to focus on the pain in his wing. He couldn't help but feel the pain pulsing through his back, causing the adrenaline to settle further in his mind. He cried silently, unable to do anything. He closed his eyes. It was sad, thinking he would never get to be held by Scar again. He'd never get to kiss Scar in the kitchen at 2 in the morning like he had been planning. He'd never get to live with the other or see Jelly again. He'd never get to see Scar's friends or his sister. Pearl. Green felt tears fall down his cheek, too tired to wipe them away. He'd never get to see his family ever again. He wished he didn't have to leave Pearl without an older brother. Deep down, he wondered if it could make her stronger, but the thought of her crying over his dead body made his chest ache. She'd seek comfort from Jimmy. His family hugging without him felt so unfamiliar in his mind. Exalqua, can you hear me? Green perked up, opening his eyes to look up. He listened again before realizing it was Scar. Scar? He whispered, delirious, glancing at his wings, starting to drip an obscure amount of blood. He swallowed, realizing he needed his radio. Exalqua, are you alive? Please respond. He sounded distressed. Green shifted slowly, reaching for the radio. He paused when he heard something on his back creak. Fearing something would fall on him, he waited before fumbling down to his waist, feeling for the radio. He breathed a sigh of relief, pulling it back to his mouth to respond. Hawkeye? He whispered breathlessly, waiting for a response. It came, almost hesitantly. Exalqua, you're alive. Do you hear that? Keep digging. Grin felt his vision get blurry. His head was getting light and foggy. Oh yeah, he was under a collapsed building. His mouth felt dry as he held the radio with his shaky hand. The adrenaline wasn't going to keep him alive forever. Talking was only going to use more of his energy. Hawkeye, I need to tell you something, he whispered breathlessly. Tell me once I get you out of there. Hold on tight. Grian groaned into the mic, seeing a large amount of blood start to pool beside him. Listen to me, he whispered, his chest feeling tight. I don't know how much time I have. I'm hurt. He looked at the puddle, now spreading to touch his leg. It was spreading faster than he could even speak. Don't worry, just hang in there. We're going to get you out, okay? I promise. Grin smiled. Scar always had a habit of making promises he couldn't keep. I need to tell you before it's too late. Green grunted, the pulse in his wings slowing down. He suddenly got cold, shivering slightly in his own puddle of blood. Save it for when we get you out. You're getting out of there alive. Green grit his teeth. Listen to me. Green yelled as loud as he could, getting Scar to be quiet. It took a lot more energy out of him than he had. I just want you to know, he swallowed thickly. I love you, Scar. Green bit his lip, waiting for a response. He couldn't hear the other, wondering if he even heard. Green coughed, feeling blood streak onto his cheek. It felt warm compared to his freezing and shivering body. If I don't make it out of here, I just wanted to let you know I love you. One last time. Green felt tired, his voice becoming slurred. He closed his eyes, soaking his lashes in blood. He felt so tired. It was peaceful, under all the debris, soaked head to toe in his own warm blood. It was comforting in a way, finally being able to rest. Green decided to stop thinking, letting his body fall into the warmth around him. He longed for a rest like this. Green? Okay. Okay, so I'm back with this fic. You probably heard at the start. Different author. That caught me off guard. I guess I have to change this now? Because now it says it's by Juniper. Like, Juniper. That's new. It used to be by Peachy Bunny. I don't know what happened. At least it's back. Like, I know it just disappeared for a bit. I so what do I do now? Do I leave it as Peachy Bunny or do I change it to Juniper? I don't think I can change it on the previous ones because I'm a little bit too lazy for that. But I kind of have to go through and fix every single one and then read them. I'm too lazy for that. However, I will probably change it from this one out because like it does now say that. But also apologies if it was like, oh god, it's gonna be, I don't know when. It's gonna be in June by the time that you see this, and it's March when they changed it. Oops. Apologies. It's truly. Anyway, God, sorry. The actual fic. What do you mean Green's dying? What do you mean Green's dying? Does he die? Does he die? No, no, he doesn't die. No. What are the tags? Is there character death in these tags? There's minor character death. There's no major character death. Green will not die unless I can't read, which is a very likely possibility. Oh yeah, just his near-death experiences. Sorry, Green. Okay, he's not gonna die. We're good. We're good. It's fine. I'm scared. I'm scared for this guy. He's gonna have trauma. He already has trauma. He's gonna have a lot more trauma. Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.